everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, hosted by me, the curator, as you can see. Now, first order of business today, you may have noticed that things kind of look a little bit different on my end. That is due to a brand new camera that I purchased. I mentioned last week that my camera was getting old. It was about 4 years that I've been using it, and well, I think it was time. It was her time to be put to bed. So I did purchase a new camera. This isn't. Don't worry. This isn't going to be how every single time I will be on camera is going to look like. I am going to get a much better setting up for this camera. But for the time being, this is how I'm going to be doing this episode today. I tried doing the episode with the previous camera, and it was just completely unusable, and it really threw me off, and I couldn't do the episode to the level that I wanted to. So I just decided to jump the gun and do this camera without properly setting it up right. So I apologize if things look a little bit too jarring or awkward. This is just my first ever recording with this new camera. The second thing I wanted to point out is you may or may not have noticed that the show has now been moved to a different time slot. It is now a Monday show as opposed to being a Wednesday show, which is what it was for the last couple of weeks. This is just it was decided by me and the people who run the Northern Entertainment Group YouTube channel that Monday was a much better time slot for the show to premiere in. So this is going to be Monday is going to be the premiere day for the show for the foreseeable future. Now, third thing I wanted to mention, and this actually does tie in with the episode itself. This is being pre-taped on Sunday, the 22nd of January. 2 days ago, Thursday, January 20th, was Tom Baker's 88th birthday. Tom Baker, obviously, most known for playing the Doctor, the fourth Doctor, I should say, in Doctor Who, obviously, the show we are all here to discuss. He's also played the Doctor for the longest amount of time on screen. That is, he played the Doctor for 7 years, 7 seasons, while most other Doctors only really played for 3 seasons, which is around 4 to 5 years. Tom Baker is really unique in the fact that he portrayed the Doctor the longest on screen. At 88 years of age, he is now not only the oldest living actor to play the Doctor, but he's also the oldest actor to play the Doctor, period. The second oldest actor to play the Doctor actually there are 2 people, the 6th Doctor, Colin Baker, and the 7th Doctor, Sylvester McCoy, both at the age of 78, and preceding them is the late great John Hurt at 77. There is an 10-year difference between the oldest living Doctor and the second oldest living Doctors. Just wanted to put that little bit of detail into context. Obviously, Tom Baker, very famous for using the practically long scarf, which a version of which I am wearing right now today. And it just shows you how iconic his character of the Doctor became during the time that he portrayed this character. So, thank you, Tom Baker. Happy birthday, belated happy birthday, I should say. And we couldn't have done this without you. Something else I wanted to point out, and I did slightly mention it last week. Big Finish usually has these flash sales whenever big, important, major events are happening. And for Tom Baker's birthday, they're having a flash sale on stories featuring the 4th Doctor. Don't get your hopes up too much. There really aren't that many, but I did manage to get this thing on a little bit of a cheap. This is the Doctor Who Big Finish Out of Time Part 1, which is where the 10th Doctor, David Tennant, met up with the 4th Doctor, Tom Baker. This was a lifelong dream for David Tennant because before Peter Davison came along, Tom Baker was David Tennant's personal favorite Doctor of all time. So this is just a dream come true for David Tennant, and just a dream come true for fans of the show in general. to just see these two iconic doctors, both of which are on a lot of people's top favorite lists of favorite doctors. Just having them both at the same time in the same story is just incredible. And yeah, I can't wait to dive into this episode and listen to it, and maybe do an episode about it sometime in the near future. But like I said, happy birthday to Tom Baker. And let's get down to the actual business of this episode. Now, I did mention on my first episode that every week I'm going to try to do a different topic. Obviously, the first week of every month will be classic Doctor Who. The second week of every month will be Modern Who. The third week, anything in between, books, comics, Big Finish, and anything else I can think of. And just the fourth week of every month is anything I feel like bringing up. And for the first time, this first time of me doing this, the fourth week of any given month, I just thought it would be a laid-back, non-structured show about me talking about why I love Doctor Who as much as I do. Obviously, you may have noticed that I decided to title this episode as Why I Love Doctor Who, which is drawing inspiration from why we love Star Wars, The Greatest Moments That Built a Galaxy Far, Far Away, a novel by Ken Napzok, also known as the Pit Boss. For those of you who don't know, this channel is mostly focused around the Schmodown, the movie trivia Schmodown, which Ken Napzok is still actually a great contributor of, and we are all big fans of Ken Napzok on this channel. And Ken Napzok gave a lot of us, he inspired a lot of us to talk about the things we love, and never to be shy about the things we love and why we love them, as predominantly referenced in his book. Now, for those of you who haven't read the book, I highly encourage getting this book if you're a Star Wars fan, and also personally, if you are a Ken Napzok fan, I highly recommend getting it on Audible, because it's actually Ken Napzok himself reading the book to you, which actually feels a bit more personal when you hear it straight from the Pit Boss's mouth. So that's a little bit of a plug. Obviously, I should probably preface this. This show and this channel are not in any way, shape, or form sponsored by Big Finish or Audible or anything else of the sort. It's just me as a fan, I should say, giving a recommendation for something that I love, and hopefully you will as well. Now, for those of you who are wondering, can I actually talk about Doctor Who for an entire hour? There are actually two videos on this very same channel that show that not only I can talk about Doctor Who for an hour, I can actually talk about Doctor Who for 5 hours, which I have done twice before. So do not question my ability to talk about Doctor Who ever again. But in my opinion, what does make Doctor Who more special than any other franchise in the world? The Doctor, really. It really is just, it begins and ends with the Doctor himself, as seen in this wonderful picture that I chose to be the intro and rather the thumbnail of this episode. Just looking at the wide collection of faces that have portrayed this character over the years, and going even further into this picture, seeing all the many different personalities of this character just is the main center point of this universe of the franchise known as Doctor Who. Even the franchise's name is quite literally named after the Doctor himself. And obviously, as the idea popularized by Stephen Moffat when he was the showrunner of the show. The title of this show, Doctor Who, is, according to the rules set up in the universe of the show, it's the question, the oldest question in the universe, hidden in plain sight, the question that must never be answered. Doctor Who. Who is the Doctor? In my opinion, the Doctor is the greatest character ever written in any medium, in any franchise, in any form of storytelling, ever created by man. The Doctor is just such a multifaceted character, as I'm going to bring up this picture again, as portrayed right here in this picture. Obviously, not every single one of these faces you see on screen right now have actually been the Doctor himself or herself. Obviously, you can notice some of the spoof versions of the Doctor, some one-offs that were being portrayed as non-canon versions of the Doctor. But at the end of the day, the Doctor in and of himself, and in and of herself, I should say, is, as I mentioned, the greatest character ever written. A character who is never cruel and never cowardly, always trying to be nice, but never failing to be kind. These are the wonderful words spoken by Peter Capaldi's Doctor, written by Stephen Moffat for the great and wonderful final episode of Peter Capaldi's era, Twice Upon a Time, where the Doctor met himself, essentially, and needed to be reminded of why he's doing this, why he continues to fight, why he must always go on, as the show itself always must go on. The fact that we're even talking about this show that has lasted for 39 seasons and 58 years on and off television, it shows you something. It shows you how great the writing of the show is, and the direction, and the acting, and everything else in between helps to further the Doctor's character and the Doctor's development. It's the way I always compare Doctor Who is like, imagine it's a live action comic book, because comic books, they tend to have obviously character rewrites and character redesigns, and the writing team and the art team always change hands. There's always so many people working on different characters, like Spider-Man, so many different versions of Spider-Man, so many versions of Superman and Batman, and Doctor Who is just one of that. It just happens to be on television for the most part. It also has various comic books and other stuff, like I mentioned. But at the end of the day, it's all a matter of how you write this character. That's why some of the greatest Doctor Who stories of all time are are some of my favorites. They're so well written, and that I think is what separates writing in Doctor Who stories apart from various other characters in both books, comics, movies, TV shows, etc. It all comes down to the writing of how the character of the Doctor is portrayed, how the companions are being portrayed, how the universe itself is being portrayed. When you really break it down and try to explain to someone what Doctor Who is and what Doctor Who means to you, you're either gonna be at a loss for words, or you're just gonna be able to talk for so long that you'll eventually forget why you started talking in the first place. Because Doctor Who is just that kind of show that you can't really explain it in words why you love it so much. Is it either the Doctor himself or herself, the type of storylines being told, the characters being portrayed? It's just the fact, like I said, when you break it down to it, it's a very simple premise. An alien travels through space and time in a spaceship that's shaped like a phone box. That's basically it. That's the elevator pitch, as they say in the business. That's not a very good pitch, if you ask me. That's not a very it's very simplistic. It's bare bones explanation of what the show is, and I don't think quite expresses the limitless potential that this show has. It's quite literally a show where anything and everything can happen on it. Remember that time that the Doctor and his friends locked up Adolf Hitler in the cupboard? That happened. Remember that time that the Doctor and his friends shrunk down to miniature sizes and were being chased by giant insects in some person's house. That happened. Remember that one time the Doctor traveled into a parallel universe? That happened multiple times. It's literally a show where anything can happen, and the possibilities are quite literally endless. Again, what stops this show from just being a random show where anything and everything can happen? Like I said, it's variety. Yes, we are aware that anything can happen on the show, but it's all a matter of refinement and how you tell the story. If you tell someone that maybe isn't familiar with Doctor Who, if someone wants to know uh, what Doctor Who is, and you just say, "Oh, it's a show where everything happens," again, like I said, it's not a very good pitch. It's a show where anything could happen, and not a very good pitch. But then again, the pitch I made earlier of alien, spaceship, time, space, phone box, not a very good pitch either. It's so the what I always find is the best way to explain to people why they need to be watching Doctor Who is just watch it, and you're either going to love it or you're just never going to pay any attention to it. And that's really it. I've been trying to get some of my friends to watch Doctor Who for a while now, and showing them clips or trailers just doesn't really do that for them. It's just trying to convey your love of the franchise to them, and hopefully they'll be able to see the passion that you have for the show, which is a passion that we all share as Doctor Who fans to the show. That'll maybe potentially help bring them into this wonderful universe. Just like in this picture, the Doctor is always such an inviting character. I love this pose that the artist chose to portray Jodie Whittaker's Doctor in, because she's basically inviting you to join her, much like how David Tennant's line in The Fires of Pompeii, the episode that has been mostly remembered for introducing Peter Capaldi into the Doctor Who universe, and obviously was later referenced by Stephen Moffat in The Girl Who Died. The Doctor just holds out his or her hand towards the audience and just says, "Come with me." It's a very inviting show. The Doctor is quite literally inviting you, the audience member, the reader, the listener, whoever is interested in the show. The Doctor is inviting you to join him or her on this wonderful, massive journey through time and space. And really, that is why we're all here, why we all signed up to the show in the first place. We are just as much companions of the Doctor as any of these people. All of these, as you can see on this great picture in front of you, are the companions of the Doctor. The Doctor has had many companions over the years, but none quite as frequent as us, as me, as as Stephen Moffat, I should say, as Russell T Davies, as people who watch the show as children, as they grew up and into their teen years, and one day eventually became big wigs over at the BBC, and were able to take over the show and sort of bring the show back to another golden age, telling the stories of the show the way they see fit, and just being able to bring the show back for us, the audience, and maybe potentially inspiring people who have been watching this show as children since the 2005 revival to one day become writers who will eventually take their own stamp, put their own stamp on the franchise as a whole. David Tennant himself said it in multiple interviews that the only reason he became an actor was primarily to play the Doctor. One day he saw Tom Baker, which we've mentioned multiple times on this episode already. He saw his favorite Doctor, Peter Davison, as the Doctor. Hold on, I have a picture of Peter Davison right here. So he saw his favorite doctor, Peter Davison. He fell in love with the show in a very similar way that I did. He fell in love with the character of the doctor. He fell in love with the companions, namely Sarah Jane Smith. And one day, when he eventually became an established actor, he got a chance to fulfill his dream, and he got to actually play the Doctor. He's my personal favorite of the Doctors, and the surprises never stopped there. He didn't just uh, got cast as his favorite character, the Doctor. He also got to do several episodes alongside his personal favorite companion, Sarah Jane Smith. He also got to do a sort of mini episode with his personal favorite doctor, Peter Davison. Later in life, he also married Peter Davison's daughter and eventually became the son-in-law to his personal favorite doctor. It's a bit of a weird how all of this happened. But then obviously, like I mentioned, now we have this. Now we have the 10th Doctor and the 4th Doctor together. So basically, I guess what I'm trying to say here is that the show opens up one's imagination and shows you the possibilities, what you can do, what you can achieve, and maybe one day, maybe someday, just like David Tennant, you will be able to fulfill your dreams. If your dream is to one day be cast as the Doctor, I guess that's something you can do only if you're British. But David Tennant did manage to do that very same thing he sought out to do. Same thing as Peter Capaldi. Peter Capaldi also was a major fan of the show ever since pretty much the Troughton era of Doctor Who. He loved the show so much, and one of his favorite doctors is also John Pertwee. David Tennant not only got to be Peter Capaldi not only got to be cast as the Doctor eventually at some point, he pretty much got to be a more modern version of John Pertwee. As a matter of fact, in one of the episodes, he was even wearing, or rather several episodes, I should say, he was wearing a coat very similar to the coat that John Pertwee was wearing during his time as the Doctor. But now, obviously, I'm not just sitting here saying that if you're a Doctor Who fan and your ideal wish is to one day be the Doctor, you're eventually going to make it. Obviously, no, that's not really how it works. But I'm just saying that this show means so much to so many people, myself included, David Tennant included, Peter Capaldi included, that they eventually got to follow their dreams. And I think I mentioned this in a couple of previous episodes ago, that there was a British member of Parliament who mentioned that recasting the Doctor as a female is a bad move because it takes away a positive, good role model away from boys, causing boys to go in the direction of choosing negative role models to them, like the likes of characters from the show Peaky Blinders. And he cited the recasting of Doctor Who as a female as the main reason for the dramatic rise in crime rates in Britain in the past couple of years. And to that I say, a good role model is a good role model, regardless of whether it's male or female. It never really bothered me that they chose to recast the Doctor as a female. Same as that, it never really bothered me that they chose to recast the Master as a female. As a matter of fact, if I bring up this picture, I'm choosing to go with this picture because it's much more well lit than the previous one. If you'll notice on Capaldi's left, I should say, right next to the War Doctor, we see a female version of the Doctor, which was originally conceived by Stephen Moffat. This was obviously on the other side of the War Doctor. We see Rowan Atkinson as the spoof version of the Doctor. In that very same episode, the Doctor eventually gets turned into a woman by the end of the spoof special episode. That never really bothered me, and maybe it was watching this spoof episode, which is the main reason why I was so on board with the idea of recasting the Master as a woman, or recasting the Doctor as a female. It never bothered me. I don't understand why some people were bothered by the idea that the Doctor is now a woman. A lot of people obviously have started watching the show because they recast the Doctor as a female. It never bothered me. I never understood why people weren't on board with the idea. First of all, the Doctor is an alien. I mentioned this earlier, that the Doctor is one of the most important parts about this show, and what makes this franchise so great. It really shouldn't matter if the Doctor is played by a woman or a man, or a transgender person, or a black person, or anything else of the sort. As long as it's the Doctor, as long as the character is still true to the core values that what make Doctor Who so great, what made the Doctor, him or herself, such a great character to begin with. Never cruel, never cowardly, always try to be nice, but never fail to be kind. The comedic sensibilities that the Doctor is so famously known for, and just the interaction between the Doctor and the TARDIS, the interactions between the Doctor and his or her companions, the Doctor's crazy fashion sense, and just as long as the show continues to build up on those core foundations that make Doctor Who what it is, it really doesn't matter who is playing the Doctor and who isn't playing the Doctor. And right now, obviously, no secret there, Jodie Whittaker is on her way out as from playing the Doctor. We had four/5 great years with Jodie Whittaker. Some of the more controversial times of Doctor Who. Obviously, like I mentioned, a lot of people weren't on board with the Doctor being a woman now. A lot of people really weren't on board with some of the storytelling decisions that Chris Chibnall decided to do with to take the show. Obviously, the Timeless Child storyline is not something that a lot of people favor. One way of saying it, a lot of people did not like that storyline, and a lot of people just practically just jumped ship, as they were, which is fine. Obviously, like I said, you are just as much of a companion of the Doctor as any of the companions seen on the show. It is entirely up to you whether you decide to keep watching the show, or whether you just decide to say the show has had its run, or it had its impact on me and my life. I don't need to watch it again anymore, and that's perfectly fine. You can stop watching the show, but just keep it in mind, the show hasn't had the smoothest times before. A lot of people were not on board with this person playing the Doctor. A lot of people were not on board with some of the storylines being told during the Sixth Doctor era, which obviously led to him being recast by the Seventh Doctor. And unfortunately, another significant change in the way the stories were being told wasn't able to save the show back then. The show did get canceled in '89, but as evidenced by me still sitting here talking today, the cancellation wasn't finite. It wasn't the final nail in the coffin for this franchise. The franchise still kept going through the audio productions and through books and comics, and obviously there were the New Adventures series of novels, and then obviously the 1996 movie starring Paul McGann, and then obviously the Big Finish stuff then started to become really popular. And obviously, like I mentioned earlier, Russell T Davies brought the show back in 2005. So theoretically speaking, even if the show would be canceled today, it will not be the end of Doctor Who, which is one of my favorite parts about it, is that it's practically eternal. This show will, sad to say, will outlast all of us. It will outlast me. It will probably outlast you. It'll probably outlast even our children and grandchildren The show is practically eternal, and honestly, I would not have it any other way. But going back to my previous point, uh, Jodie Whittaker is now on her last few episodes. We only have two more episodes supposedly with Jodie Whittaker, the upcoming special Legend of the Sea Devils, and another special which I believe is another. I don't think it's been confirmed as of yet, but it might be another New Year's special because, as we've seen in the past, Chris Chibnall really does enjoy having these types of specials, the New Year's specials, which will most likely be no, actually, no, I think it actually has been confirmed. I'm pretty darn sure that the next special, which will be Jodie Whittaker's last episode, will be on the 23rd of November, celebrating the 59th anniversary of the show. Or maybe I'm misremembering it, and it's actually Russell T Davies who mentioned that the first episode of the next season, or series, as they say, will be on the 23rd of November, 2023. I guess maybe there's something in there that I'm missing, and I'm just combining two things together. But we're not here to talk about that at the moment. Obviously, much like the Doctor, I keep getting a lot of stuff mixed up and keep getting confused while talking. That's really one of my flaws. Is sometimes I like to talk and talk and talk without really giving my brain enough time to think about what it is I'm saying. But going back to the Jodie Whittaker stuff, Jodie Whittaker, like I said, she's on her way out, and right now everybody's waiting to see who the next Doctor will be, which actor or actress will be cast as the next Doctor. And a lot of people are asking me, who do you want to play the next Doctor? And obviously, I'm seeing a lot of people giving their suggestions. Obviously, the name that is being thrown around a lot is Lydia West, who has been appearing on a show with Russell T Davies more recently, and a lot of people say, and even Jodie Whittaker herself has mentioned in interviews that she would love if Lydia West become the next Doctor, her immediate predecessor. I've seen a lot of people suggesting Lucifer star Tom Ellis. A lot of people have been suggesting Benedict Cumberbatch, Doctor Strange, obviously, who also worked with Stephen Moffat on the wonderful show called Sherlock. A lot of people are suggesting Daniel Radcliffe, of all people, Harry Potter himself. So many different names are being thrown out there. A lot of people, I don't even know if it's a joke right now, but a lot of people are suggesting Michael Sheen. And a lot of people are suggesting so many different names as the Doctor, and a lot of people are just asking me, who do I want to be the next Doctor? And you know what my answer always is? I don't care. I have never really cared so much who the next Doctor will be. Obviously, my favorite will always be David Tennant. He was my first Doctor, and I don't think any Doctor ever, any actor ever, will ever be able to replace him as my personal favorite. I apologize. My neighbors are being incredibly unneighborly right now by being very loud, but I'm not going to stop the show and to address that beyond what I already just did. But like I said, my favorite Doctor will always and forever be David Tennant, and nothing's ever going to change that. And as far as who is going to be the next Doctor, again, I never really cared so much who the next Doctor will be after Matt Smith. I was delighted and overjoyed when I discovered that Peter Capaldi was cast as the next Doctor. I was also very delighted and overjoyed when Jodie Whittaker was cast as the next Doctor. And I will be just as happy and delighted and overjoyed when the next actor will be cast as the Doctor. To me, it's not about who the actor playing the Doctor is. It's all about, like I said earlier, how the stories themselves are being written. One of the many points of criticism that the Jodie Whittaker era of the Doctor has been receiving is the fact that a lot of people seem to be on board. A lot of people seem to like, I should say, Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. Just not a lot of people. A lot of people seem to say that the stories themselves, the storylines of the Doctor, aren't really the best. They don't like the way certain stories are being told. Which, again, I get it. The Timeless Child storyline really took a lot of us by surprise. It took me a little bit of time and several rewatches to actually get on board with the idea of the Timeless Child being a part of the Doctor Who canon now. And yes, it is canon. I definitely consider it to be canon. I never really uh, pay any attention to people who just say it's not canon. Let's move on and let's just forget that that story ever happened. To me, it happened, and it's not about trying to erase what happened. It's about accepting it and moving on, which is very similar to what the Doctor would have done in a situation like that, and it's actually very similar to what the Doctor did in that situation. She accepted her past and her um, and the idea of her being the fugitive Doctor and a lot of other previous Doctors prior to the William Hartnell era, and the Doctor just accepted it and moved on. She did what the Doctor always does, moved on, which is a very, despite the fact that the Doctor has done that, it is a very, very human thing to do. It's just don't dwell on it too much, just accept it and move on. Which, again, I can go on and on all day talking about how the Doctor has inspired me in so many different ways in my life to just never really dwell on the past too much. Just accept it and move on. Don't forget it. Don't try to erase it. Don't say it never happened. Don't be in denial. Just accept it. And acceptance is a very important part of living. And that is another one of the many, many lessons that the Doctor has taught me. That accepting the way things are is really the first step in moving on, which moving on is exactly what we should all do in our lives, and no one more so than the Doctor him slash herself. Just like I'm right now accepting that Jodie Whittaker's time as the Doctor is slowly coming to an end. Uh, the next episode we see of the Doctor will be her penultimate story as the Doctor. Who knows? She might actually come back the following year for the 60th anniversary. Who knows? Some of the other actors who have played the Doctor in the past and are obviously still alive may also come back at one point to portray this character again. Uh, like I said, this show, one of the great things about it is that quite literally anything could happen. So that's why I never really rule out anything when it comes to potential storylines that the show could have um, in the future. Another really great thing I love about Doctor Who, and one of the many things that really actually drove me to keep watching it, is the music, whether it be the wonderful, just orchestral genius that is Murray Gold, or whether it's all the way back with the original Ron Grainer's original theme for the show. It's the music of Doctor Who is such a major part of my personal life. It's the music that continues to change just as much as the show itself continues to change. Obviously, as I mentioned, Ron Grainer wrote the original uh, theme of the show, the da 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 dum da 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 dum da 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 dum, and then obviously the that all came from the mind of Ron Grainer. It was then reused by Peter Howell. Howell, I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. Peter Howell was, I believe, the first person to change the main theme of the show back in the 80s. He gave, appropriately speaking of Tom Baker, he gave Tom Baker a new rendition of the main theme for his final show, which the theme itself then continued on as Peter Davison's main theme throughout his run as the Doctor, which then was then changed again for Colin Baker's final season. It was changed again for Sylvester McCoy's entire run as the Doctor. And then obviously when the movie came along, they had a new version of the theme itself. And obviously, as I mentioned previously, when Russell T Davies eventually brought the show back in the 2005 revival, a brand new season and brand new theme for the Doctor. David Tennant also got his own version of the theme for his final season. Matt Smith also got two different versions of his of the theme. Peter Capaldi also had his version of the theme, and obviously Jodie Whittaker also had another version of the theme. I apologize, I do not at the moment remember who wrote Jodie Whittaker's version of the theme, but it really is just the music of Doctor Who. That theme in and of itself is just the music of the franchise, the music of the show. There's so many different versions and renditions and remixes and fan versions of this theme, but at the end of the day, much like the Doctor himself or herself, it always comes back down to the core values of the theme itself. The da 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 dum da 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 dum da 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 dum. That will always be the main central theme of the theme itself, the music itself. Which, again, I apologize that I keep bringing this back to the Timeless Child storyline, or rather the Timeless Children, the episode itself specifically. But when the Doctor was trapped in the Matrix by the Master, and she needed to use essentially her own life, her own memories, the entire history of the show, and potentially even before that, she needed to use all of that to break through, to break free from the Matrix. Uh, the music you can hear in the background while Jodie Whittaker is using her thoughts and her memories to break free from the Matrix. It's basically the same theme that we hear at the beginning of the show, which led me to believe that, for lack of a better expression, for lack of a better word, I should say, that music is the music that the Doctor is always hearing in her head. Like the main theme of the show, every single Doctor can hear that very same music in his or her head all the time. And obviously the da 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 dum da 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 dum da 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 dum part of the show, a part of the theme, is very similar to the Master's four knocks. It is the heartbeat of a Time Lord, which I guess I'm getting a little bit too metaphorical at the moment, but in more ways than one, the theme itself, the music of Doctor Who, is the heart of the show, the heart of the franchise. And I think I said this multiple times already. The music itself is the main reason that I kept coming back to the show. And I eventually fell in love with the rest of the show, but it was really the music that drew me in. The music composed by the wonderful Murray Gold, and obviously the main theme, which came from the original idea by Ron Grainer. The music is the thing. The music is what keeps the show at its best, I should say. Which is a very interesting thing that I wanted to bring up. Honestly, this show is about Doctor Who. Obviously, the show is about Doctor Who, and all I am ever going to do on this show is talk about Doctor Who. But I honestly don't know when I will be able to fit this particular detail into an episode of the show. So I guess this is as good as time as any to talk about this. In the most recent season of Doctor Who Flux, I should say, season 13 or series 13. Again, it all depends on how you choose to call them. There was an episode called Village of Angels, or The Village of Angels. I think that was the full name of the title of the episode. Where, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the episode, I guess I should make this official. Hold on. Where is oh, no, never mind. I guess I should make this official, but again, this is a spoiler if you haven't seen the episode itself. I'm going to give you guys a last and final warning, but in that very same episode, hold on. This is great, by the way. You can tell that I prepared this in advance, right? Clearly, I'm sticking to my guns of not having any script for this channel. I'm just going, just saying things off the top of my head, which I think is the best way for me to talk about Doctor Who. But again, final spoiler warning: if you haven't checked out already, if you haven't seen the episode, this is your final warning. But in that episode, the episode itself ends with the Doctor literally becoming a weeping angel. She turns to stone right in front of our eyes. She sprouts the familiar angel wings, and then she ends up covering herself, becoming a weeping angel at the very end of the episode. And during the outro theme of this show, you hear the familiar music of Doctor Who, the but something you don't hear at the end credits of that episode is you don't hear it at all in the outro of this episode, which again, I'm gonna keep repeating this point till I'm blue in the face, I suppose. But the music you can hear is the music that the Doctor herself hears in her head all the time, and the knocks on the knocks, I should say, during the theme is the heartbeat of a Time Lord, which would explain why, if the Doctor is now a weeping angel, she doesn't have a heartbeat, or rather hearts beat, plural, because she has two of them. So that's just an interesting anecdote that I came up with listening to this theme and watching those particular episodes of the show. So again, I think the Chris Chibnall era episodes, while they do have their flaws and their problems, I think they are much deeper than a lot of people are giving them credit to. So I don't think there is any reason to discount any of them, just because maybe you don't like the idea of the Doctor being a woman, or maybe you just don't like a particular storyline featuring the Doctor. So like, if you're watching the show for whatever reason, just and again, this is something I would probably say to the people who jumped ship and left the show after Matt Smith left the show, or after Peter Capaldi left the show, or after Christopher Eccleston left the show, or David Tennant. I don't know. If you have at one point or another watched Doctor Who for any amount of time and stopped, maybe you should ask yourself, what really was it that drove you into watching the show? Why you watched the show to begin with? Was it a particular companion? Was it a particular Doctor? Was it a storyline? Was it a villain? Was it, like I said earlier, the music? What really was it that drove you to watching the show? And like I said, to me, it will always be the Doctor. So even though the Doctor changes actors all the time, to me, the Doctor is still the Doctor, no matter who plays the role. Even if maybe it'll one day, I don't think it'll ever happen, but maybe it'll one day be an actor or an actress that I don't think quite is quite a good fit to play the Doctor, or an actor or actress that I wouldn't think is doing a good job as the Doctor. It's still going to be the Doctor for me. So yeah, I can say that I'm not a fan of this particular actor playing the role. I'm not a fan of this actor being the Doctor. Even if I end up absolutely hating it, like what I did with a certain other character that shall be remained nameless throughout the majority of this episode. Even if there is the possibility that I might hate whoever they cast as the next Doctor, it still will always going to be a temporary thing. And again, I don't foresee myself disliking whoever they cast as the next Doctor, but be that as it may, it will only be a temporary thing. Again, going back to the character that shall remain nameless, even that character, she lasted a bit longer than I would have liked to admit, but her storyline eventually ended, and she left the show just like every other companion has done in the past. And the show, if nothing else, the show is mainly about change. And like I said, it's about acceptance. It's about accepting the past, just like I have accepted this character was a part of the show at one point or another and left. And just like a lot of people who maybe not be big fans of Jodie Whittaker being the Doctor, again, she's on her way out, and she's going to leave the show sooner rather than later. And before you know it, a brand new actor or actress will be taking on the role of the Doctor, so that you can either fall in love with the show, or just um, start to dislike it all over again. It's all up to you. It's all a matter of, again, like I said earlier, what drove you to watch this show in the first place? Why do you like Doctor Who? I always said why I like Doctor Who. For me, it's the Doctor. It's always has been the Doctor, and it will always continue to be the Doctor. What is it? What is it that drove you to watch the show? Was it a friend's recommendation? Was it, again, like I said, the music, the storylines, the effects, maybe the Daleks, the Cybermen? Maybe you liked um, these guys, the Paternoster gang, Strax, Vestra, and Jenny. Was it David Tennant that drove you to watch the show? Again, it's a show. I guess it's a question about re-examining yourself. Why do you love Doctor Who so much, or rather, why you liked Doctor Who at one point in your lifetime that made you want to watch the show to begin with? Why you left the show? Why you're still watching the show? And it just Doctor Who is just that type of franchise that no one will ever have the same answer as the other person. You can never really say that this one thing is what drives everyone to watch the show, because everyone looks at this show differently, through different eyes, through different tinted lenses. Everyone sees the show differently. Everyone has a different takeaway from the show, which is why so many different people from so many different walks of life love this show and continue to watch this show. And the main reason I always say that my favorite part about this show is the Doctor, him or herself, the main character, is because that what really separates a franchise like Doctor Who from any other franchise in the world is how much the Doctor, him or herself, is so integral to the story of the show. Now, at the beginning of this episode, I referenced this book, Why We Love Star Wars. If we were to talk a little bit about Star Wars in of itself, the Star Wars universe is massive and expensive. I would make the argument that maybe it's not quite as big as the Doctor Who universe, but I mean that's just me personally trying to make a point here. But like I said, the Star Wars universe is so big and so massive that it does not revolve around one single person, one single character. Obviously, to some people, the only Star Wars that is real, the only Star Wars that is canon, is the original six George Lucas movies, and they refuse to accept any of the new stuff in Star Wars, any of the expanded media stuff, anything else except those original six movies. To them, I say, to these people, I say again the question I proposed towards Doctor Who a few minutes ago: why do you love Star Wars as much as you do? What drove you to watch Star Wars? Maybe if you figure out the answer to that, you'll figure out why you're not quite as big of a fan of the sequel trilogy or any other form of Star Wars past the original six movies. But going back to those original six movies, I think I'm going to turn off the air conditioning at this point because it's really giving me a headache right now. But those original six movies of the Star Wars saga are, for the most part, centered around the character of Anakin Skywalker slash Darth Vader. But those are just six movies. As I mentioned earlier, the Star Wars galaxy is so massive. There's so many stuff happening outside of just Darth Vader, like the Legacy era of Star Wars, and like the Old Republic, the High Republic, the Infinite Empire, which takes place so many different years before Anakin Skywalker was even a conceivable thing, that the Star Wars galaxy does not revolve around Anakin Skywalker. In a very similar light, the Star Trek universe doesn't necessarily revolve around Captain James T. Kirk or Captain Jean-Luc Picard. So many other captains have piloted other ships before and after both of these guys. Really, if you really try to look at it, you could argue that the Star Trek universe kind of revolves around Starfleet, but then again, there are a lot of other stories taking place, really just only talking about Klingons or the Borg or other alien species outside of just Starfleet. The Harry Potter universe, while for the most part the Harry Potter books and the Harry Potter movies mostly center around one character, Harry Potter, the wizarding world of Harry Potter is so big and so massive, as we've seen with the Fantastic Beasts franchise, and as we're about to see with the Hogwarts Legacy video game that's coming up very soon. The story itself does not necessarily revolve around one character in the form of Harry Potter. The Middle Earth stories don't necessarily revolve around just Frodo Baggins or Bilbo Baggins. One could argue that the stories really revolve around the ring itself, the one ring to rule them all. But then again, the ring itself was lost in a lake for 2,500 years, if I remember correctly, and has passed and completely disappeared from all knowledge. And so you could argue that the Middle Earth franchise, the Middle Earth story, does not revolve around one character and one singular thing. With regards to Doctor Who, the Doctor Who universe, or the Whoniverse as fans often call it, really does mainly revolve around the Doctor himself or herself. Really, the Doctor is the main focal point of so many other points of storytelling in this universe. Even and Big Finish has done such a great job portraying so many other stories and so many characters to expand the massive universe of Doctor Who without actually having to bring up the Doctor himself or herself. So many other stories that the Doctor plays no part in, like, for example, the Bernice Summerfield storylines, or Iris Wildtime, or Jago and Lightfoot, or, as I mentioned earlier, the Paternoster game. But all of these characters, in some way or another, have at one point been touched by the Doctor. Not making it creepy, but figuratively speaking, that is. So all these characters do have some sort of a connection to the Doctor. All of these characters sort of owe their lives and owe their stories being told to the Doctor, which just shows you how integral the Doctor is to this universe. Even storylines that have absolutely no connection to the Doctor whatsoever, or rather, sorry, I should say, even storylines where the Doctor makes no appearance whatsoever, there is some sort of an imprint by the Doctor. They are happening for a reason specifically tied to the Doctor, whether it be past, future, or present. But that is a story for another time, because we now have reached past the hour mark, and that is I did make a promise that I will try to keep these episodes to about an hour. But like I said, the Doctor, him in and of itself, is the main integral focal point of this franchise, and is the reason why I love this franchise as much as I do, because of how much this franchise seems to be revolving around one singular character, the Doctor, which is not really something you can say about any other franchise in pop culture media. That's, I think, all I can say for now. Next week, I will be doing my first ever, or not really first ever, but next week, the Doctor is going to be the main topic of really all the episodes from next month. Next week, I will be touching on all 7 of the original classic Doctors, and maybe viewing recommendations for people who are trying to start getting into classic Who. The following week will be all about the modern era of Who, which I will do the same. I will be only talking about the modern era Doctors, and maybe some episode recommendations for all of the 5 modern Doctors. Yeah, it is 5. I'm not miscounting anyone. The following episode will mostly be about Doctors from who may or may not be the original 7 or the modern 5. Just Paul McGann's movie Doctor, the War Doctor, the Fugitive Doctor, any other version of the Doctor that isn't necessarily tied to the main stories. And the 4th week of next month, I will be doing a T ranking list of as many Doctors as I can fit on screen and talk about for about an hour. But that's all I can say for now. Thank you for watching. If you have, I apologize for the messiness, if there really was any messiness in this episode. Again, I do not like to read things off of a script. I just like to go by the seat of my pants, much like the Doctor himself, piloting the TARDIS, not really necessarily knowing where he's going or where she's going to land. But that's really how I roll, and I think that's what really makes this show, my show, as special and as unique as I would like it to be. So yeah, this was me talking about Doctor Who, my favorite franchise of all time, which is something I will be continuing to do every Monday now on the Northern Entertainment Group YouTube channel. If you have any interest of following me and my adventures as I unravel the web of time, as they say, every Monday, you're more than welcome to subscribe to this channel. You're more than welcome to check out some of the other shows that we have. I almost jumped the gun there. We do have a Star Wars show where I occasionally make frequent appearances on. It's called Let's Talk About Star Wars with my good friend Taco and my other good friend Evan Bushkar, also known as Gold Leader. We have a lot of Schmodown stuff. We have Schmodown Analytics with Kiwi and Double D. We have Get Sweaty, which is a show that I'm part of with Soda and Ben. We have Rewind the Tape, where every week we're now Soda and Ben are recapping all the Batman movies. We have Mount Shmona, which will eventually return once the Shmona itself comes back. We have so many wonderful shows around Schmodown or otherwise. You also have You Seen This with Daniel and Snark, which is a show that mainly talks about television. We have Northern Unwind, which is just a laid-back 2-hour show. It's talking about movies, entertainment, with games and all kinds of fun stuff. I've been on it last week, and yeah, we have so much content on this channel that it would really mean the world to us if you would be so kind to subscribe and join us on the fun. Obviously, I can be found on my personal YouTube channel, 50 Shades of Geek. And, well, I think I already said everything I could say. So until the next episode, where I will be talking about, again, my favorite character of all time, I bid you farewell and allons-y!